Heute!
Hello everyone, my name is Mike Snow, and I think we're all just still basking in the glow of the greatness that is the season finale of Twin Peaks: The Return. It is absolutely amazing. It's more than we could have expected. No one predicted what was going to happen, and I think we're all really just still digesting what's going on, as I have for the past 2 days. And there's something about it that I just have to get off my chest. 5 things, 5 questions, burning questions that I have while thinking about this series, about what's going on, about what's happening in it, and about what exactly we witnessed during this episode. And this list is not in any particular order, it's just the 5 things, the 5 questions that I really have and that have been exercising my brain for the past few days. Number 1 is the Coop that we see in the final 2 episodes the real Agent Cooper? Now, it stands to reason that after Coop returned to his senses a couple of episodes ago, in episode 16, that we would have the real Agent Cooper back, and we would have him for the last 2 episodes of the show. Sort of. We kind of maybe have that, but I think in reality, the Coop that we see for most of the time in the final 2 episodes is very debatably our Agent Cooper. He doesn't quite act like him. When we see Agent Cooper rushing to the police station in episode 17, he's acting like the Agent Cooper that we know. He's smiling, he's friendly, he's nice. Everything seems normal about what's going on. And yet, after the fight with Evil Bob, with his death bag or whatever the heck that was, something about him really changes. I didn't feel it when I first was watching it because I was so amazed, but everything about what happens seems so pat. It seems so perfect. Everything's sewn up too well after what happens. And we see Agent Cooper go through a number of worrying behaviors. Most especially, his face is superimposed over the back of the screen for several minutes for no explicable reason, and the expression on his face doesn't seem especially happy. And we also see, after Evil Cooper is taken care of, that Cooper speaks in that backwards tone about us living inside of a dream, which is, he speaks in exactly the same way that Evil Cooper did. We only saw Evil Cooper ever speaking in that way before he suddenly disappears to another section of Twin Peaks, and we don't see him logically progress from point A to point B. He just snaps away, he almost teleports away. It doesn't feel normal or natural. Keeping up with that, he also behaves rather strangely several times in episode 18. He speaks as if he's not really him. He's not acting as if he's Dale Cooper. He speaks in sort of a dull monotone. He actually says to Diane right before their sex scene, "Now you come over to me," in much the same way that Evil Cooper commanded Chantel earlier in the season. He behaves in a lot of ways like Evil Cooper. You know, for instance, when he's asked for coffee in episode 18, in episode 17, we very specifically see Good Cooper wants coffee, Evil Cooper does not want coffee. But this Cooper that we see here, he doesn't say anything when asked for coffee. He doesn't respond. He's totally neutral. In one of the episodes of Twin Peaks in season 1, Deputy Hawk says that he believes in several different types of souls.
Do you believe in the soul?
Several.
More than one?
Blackfoot legend. Waking souls that give life to the mind and the body. A dream soul that wanders.
Where do they wander?
Faraway places. The land of the dead.
Could the Agent Cooper that we're seeing in this new version not exactly be the Agent Cooper that we know? Could he have somehow taken within himself the doppelganger Cooper and be sort of a weird mixture of Evil Coop and Good Coop? That's not quite the same thing as the one we knew back in the original show. You know, he also does something very interesting in the diner in episode 18 in Odessa, Texas. He saves a young woman from being sexually harassed by 3 cowboys, which sounds perfectly in line with what Good Coop would do. However, he then displays combat skills that are totally in line with Evil Cooper, which we didn't quite see from the good Coop. I mean, we kind of saw that when he twisted the gun away from Ike the Spike, but that really felt more like an evil Cooper kind of behavior. And then afterwards, he speaks again in this very dull, neutral monotone when talking to the waitress and the cook. And he strangely puts the guns inside the friolator inside of this diner, which he knows immediately afterwards could set the bullets off and kill the cook or anyone around there. It seems like a really dangerous, stupid thing to do, and yet he does it anyway. And he knows that what he's doing is wrong, but he goes ahead and does it. It doesn't feel like what Cooper would do. It doesn't feel like the shining paladin of goodness that we know. So that's one of the biggest questions I have. Is this the real Agent Cooper, or is that a meaningless question and there are different iterations of him, and this one has just been, well, he's slightly different from spending all that time in the lodge? We don't really know. This before in my videos, and I still don't have any answers about this, but what is the relevance of the little girl who lived down the lane? Now, as I mentioned before, I've only watched the movie of this, and in the movie, we know that the main character of that is a young girl, as Laura starts this out as a young girl. Her horrors in life begin about 12, 13 when she reaches adolescence. The little girl in this story actually has a loving father who's wonderful and really great to her, which is very much not what's going on with her, with Laura and Leland. And she has a horrible mother, an evil mother who does horrible things to her that she hates. And she actually eventually loses her father to illness, and she actually murders her own estranged mother by secretly poisoning her, which is really, really peculiar. I mean, maybe it's related to something that's going on with Sarah right now, and Sarah Palmer being evil, and maybe something to do with her killing her, but maybe I'm reading too much into it, and something the little girl that lives down the lane is just a reference maybe to a person not being who they think they are, and a person, instead of being the Laura that we knew, it's another little girl down the lane that's just like her, that seems like her, but is somebody different. In the little girl that lived down the lane, the main character is also a young girl that fends off the sexual advances of an older person by killing them, unlike what Laura did when she was not able to kill her attacker and she actually was killed by him. So that's also a little bit different. And I can't quite tell what any relevance is going on there. Although one of the producers of the movie was actually named Leland, strangely enough. But what relevance that the little girl who lives down the lane has is kind of in the air right now, and it seems really, really, really important, because they went out of their way to mention it again in the last episode when he goes to talk to the strange evolution of the arm. There's also a weird moment when Coop is driving away from the hotel where he sees a lamppost and a tree, which juxtaposed next to one another look very, very similar to the electric tree thing that we saw. It's very peculiar. Why is that there? We don't really know. Is it just a visual allusion to something? We don't really know. But the little girl who lives down the lane may have a major impact on whatever the heck is going on in this story. I mean, I really don't know. What exactly is going on with Diane? Now, Diane comes back to us when Nido, who everyone was thinking for a while was maybe had something to do with Josie or was Josie's sister, but then realized, wait a minute, Nido sounds an awful lot like Diane, but backwards, and there's a weird extra E in Janie E. When Nido goes to touch Agent Cooper, and she suddenly returns and goes back to being the original Diane, what exactly happened to her? Did evil Cooper, stuff her inside the lodge? Is that what was going on? I guess that's what happened. He sort of stored her there. But why did she become this other woman while in there? Is that just completely unknown? And why did she return to Diane when she touched Cooper there? That was also, strangely enough, the moment where Agent Cooper really began acting weirdly, where he went through the process of speaking in that monotone way, when he kissed Diane for some reason when, as far as we know, they barely knew each other. They said they'd kissed once, and unless Diane was alluding to something much, much bigger, they don't seem to have had much of a sexual or romantic relationship. But why is he so interested in being near her and kissing her? And then later on, he looks at Diane and says, "I'll see you at the curtain call," meaning the red curtains outside of the Glastonbury Grove exit of with the sycamore trees to the lodge. why did she know that he was going to be there? Was she in on the plan? Presumably she wasn't. And did they let her know about the plan while she was in the lodge? Was that even possible? How does she know anything about this at all? How does she know how to get to where those sycamore trees are? And why is Gordon not with her? Why is part of his plan that Diane is going to end up there? It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And then later on, when they're in the alternate universe, she sees another version of herself, her own doppelganger or fetch, for a second. And she doesn't seem overly concerned about it. She doesn't seem shocked or stunned or, oh my God, a doppelganger is over there. She just looks at it, and then that's it. It disappears, and that's all. And then when they go into the room to have sex, a song plays that was the song that we heard in episode 8, My Prayer, a song by the Platters from the 1950s. And during this song, they actually mention something about the birds no longer being there. The birds are now gone. In Blue Velvet, the birds are supposed to represent love, according to Laura Dern's character.
In the dream, there was our world, and the world was dark because there weren't any robins. And the robins represented love. And for the longest time, there was just this darkness. And all of a sudden, thousands of robins were set free, and they flew down and brought this blinding light of love.
So if the birds are gone, does that mean that the birds, and that meaning love, is gone from their relationship? Or does this have something to do with both birds that were being hit with one stone by Agent Cooper? And then, of course, she's gone after that and calls herself Linda and Dale Richard. So was this Linda? Was this really Diane? I mean, maybe it wasn't Diane at all. Maybe it was some other character we have no idea about, because it didn't quite feel like Diane, and I mean, nothing about what they were doing felt natural or normal based on their behavior. Like when he asked to kiss her, like, it seems sort of weird and unpleasant, something like evil, like Mr. C would do. So maybe, like Cooper, this Diane is not exactly the Diane that we know. It's something weird and tainted or corrupted or twisted about it. It seemed too perfect and too easy to get away with this, that Diane would just suddenly magically come back like that. The music during Diane and Cooper's sex scene kind of flickers on and off between Diane, who's clearly not happy with what's going on, and the music, sort of like how the electricity is always flickering on and off, or the characters themselves flicker on and off in the screen as they're going into one of the portals. So is that really Diane? I can't quite tell. I mean, everyone kind of assumed, maybe, prejudicially, because the actress playing her was Asian, that it was going to be something to do with Josie. And Josie could potentially, I mean, we see her and we see her humming, which is the first thing we ever see Josie do in the entire series, in the pilot. And of course, that hum sound that we hear over and over again throughout the series and the Great Northern Hotel, people kind of thought that might have been Josie stuck in the wood. So is there something going on with Josie and Diane, and Josie is somehow related to this in some way? It's very hard to tell. So who Diane's character really is, or if that really is Diane, or what her motivations are if she actually is Diane, are kind of lost on me. What was Cooper's plan, and did he actually succeed in creating an alternate timeline or dimension? When Gordon talks about this, he says, the way he phrases it, when he says that the last thing Cooper told me was that if I go missing like the others, you have to find me. First off, was Gordon trying to find him? He didn't do like he was doing a very good job, trying to find him. But anyway, when did Cooper tell him this? The way that it's phrased, it almost sounds like he was told this after he went into the lodge. But in reality, he only could have told him that before he went into the lodge. So did Cooper know about the Judy thing before all the stuff with the Black Lodge and the things happening in the latter second season? Because if he did, he didn't mention it to anyone else there. So that would be very peculiar. And what was exactly the plan to kill two birds with one stone? What were the two birds? There are a couple of things that could be. Or the two birds, Bob and Evil Coop? Was the two things Bob and Judy, Evil Coop and Judy? Because none of that really necessarily adds up, because there's always going to be an extra person. There seems to be Judy, Bob, and his evil doppelganger. So there's someone else there that needs to be taken care of. He also seems to speak to Philip Jeffries as if he knew him when he never really knew him, except for a very weird experience meeting him for a few seconds in Fire Walk with Me. They talk as if they know one another somehow, and they're also speaking somewhat conspiratorially, and we don't know exactly what they're talking about in that little scene with him in the coffee pot. And if he succeeded in creating an alternate dimension or alternate timeline, how was that going to kill Judy? Because Philip Jeffries says, Cooper says he wants to be taken to Judy, and Philip Jeffries sends him right back to where Coop wants, which is to the moment Laura died. Why would Judy be there? Is that where Judy was born somehow during that moment or became more powerful? Why? It doesn't seem like he would be being sent to Judy. Or did he know somehow that Sarah was Judy or was involved with Judy, and taking Laura back to her would somehow harm Judy? Because that seems like it would do nothing but harm Laura. It would reveal Judy to everyone else there. It doesn't necessarily make sense to me what he was trying to do. And also in this alternate timeline, is it, in the famous poem in Twin Peaks, a magician chants out across two worlds, fire walk with me. We always kind of assumed that the two worlds were the lodge world and the normal world. But is it that the two worlds are actually the regular reality that we know in an alternate timeline? Is that what the other world is all this time? This strange Chalfont Tremond world? Is it an alternate world? Is it a totally different dimension of Twin Peaks? Because we know that Laura screamed in both cases. In both instances of her being in the past with James, she looked out and presumably saw Agent Cooper and screamed into the night. So that happens whether Laura dies or not. So Cooper had to have been there no matter what in all of the realities. But something happened during this one when he was trying to save Laura, where Judy tried to interrupt it and created another alternate world to hide her in. It's very, very strange, and I don't know exactly what's going on. And Cooper also asked, what year is this? At the end of episode 18. And I don't see how that could be relevant. I mean, we see like a chunky CRT TV in his hotel room, and that definitely would be a flat screen if it was the modern times. But it doesn't feel like it's, light years ahead. It's not like it's 2050 or something like that. It certainly doesn't feel like that. And if it is, the world doesn't look terribly different from what it did in 2017 or 2014, whenever this takes place. With that TV, it looked more like it was like the 1990s or early 2000s, not like the 1970s or 80s or the 20 whatevers in the far future. It really didn't feel like that at all. So all of this remains a burning question. What was his plan exactly? Did his plan work out to some degree because Laura didn't die and then something went wrong? Is he capable of succeeding in this plan? And most especially, who were the two birds? And what was the stone that he was going to use in order to destroy both of them? Because I really don't have any answers on that right now, and I really want them. The final one is a bit of a weird one. It is, what do horses have to do with the ending of Twin Peaks, if anything? There are a curious number of horse references in the show, including in episode 8, where the woodsman person actually recites a poem that is very specifically about a horse, where that song I mentioned during the Diane sex scene also plays.
This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full, and this end. The horse is the white of the eyes, the dark within.
Now, in the best episode of the series, by my estimation and many other people's, is when Maddie Ferguson dies, and during that episode, Sarah Palmer sees a vision of a pale horse. The pale horse, of course, representing death, that death rides in the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. We also see that the character Cheryl Lee is playing at the end of episode 18 has a horseshoe necklace that she's wearing, and in her living room has a pale horse up on the mantelpiece. Now, in The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, we find out that Laura Palmer actually had a horse around the time of her adolescence when all of this evil stuff with Bob was starting. So is the horse reference just a symbol linking it back to what was going on with Laura there? Or is there something more meaningful about the pale horse of death following this woman, who says that she dies and yet she also lives? How does she also live? Does that mean that somehow she was always this other person living in Odessa, Texas for 25 years somehow? I don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but I know that it's going to be amazing. And I have a feeling that if there's a season 4, or maybe this is answered in the book, there's going to be a whole host of things that explain a lot of this stuff. Or maybe nothing at all is going to be explained, and it's just going to be left as a mystery, which helps us to speculate, which helps fuel the community, which has existed for 25 years and is likely going to exist for many more, because there's always stuff to speculate about in the Twin Peaks world. And please, in the comments below, please tell me what you think about all of these 5 questions, if you've answered all or any of these questions, and if you have definite answers or maybe theories, if they're the same as mine, if they're different than mine. And please also like this video if you liked it, and please subscribe if you want to see more Twin Peaks content. I'm going to be making a new video pretty soon about the top 5 things that I liked about Twin Peaks The Return, and also probably one about the top 5 things I hated about Twin Peaks The Return. My name is Michael. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Damn, these people are confusing.